I'll stay here forever. There's nothing more important to me. Woo! Gonna sit here at your feet.
WOVU LP Cleveland.
Stand up.
Stop making issues out of black and white. Let's concentrate on right and wrong.
And now, our voices today.
Why are we led by our pride?
Hello and welcome to Our Voices Today on WOVU 95.9 FM. This is Burton Bell Carr Community Radio, streaming live from WOVU.org and the WOVU mobile app. I'm pretty sure all of you have downloaded the app. You can put it on an Apple device, an Android device, whatever the device is, you can put it on there. And it's very handy. It's very handy. You can look up the programming schedule. In fact, if you go right now, you can see my face there, and other people who are on the station. You can see everyone. And so WOVU, we are here for you. Today is very exciting, but first I want to make sure that I encourage everyone and just ask you and just be hopeful about the fact that you may or may not have gotten a fresh glass of water today. I actually did. Once again, I think I had 2 glasses of water yesterday and 2 bottles of water. So, I'm getting there. I hope you had a chance to eat some tasty, nutritious food, and I hope you had some great rest the night before. So we're thinking positive and productive thoughts as we move through the community on this day and every day, sending those good love vibrations out and warming the hearts of all as we move through this winter season. I'm glad today is not so slushy and gushy. Things froze a little bit, so things are crunchy. That's the fun winter sound, the crunching, right? But not the slushing and the sloshing. That means your feet are probably going to be wet soon. But anyway, I digress. Let's get to the important stuff. First of all, did you know that the We Wear the Mask art exhibition entries deadline has been extended? So you want to go to cle4equity.org, CLE, the number 4, the word equity, EQITY.org, and check out the deadline where it's been extended to. But, if you were like, tag, I missed the 17th, fear not, you still have time. So get those videos in, of your dance routines, of your, spoken word, maybe you're playing an instrument, submit your paintings and your crocheting works, We Wear the Mask, themed after the poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar, alluding to the situation of Black Americans needing to be one way on the inside, but on the outside portray a completely different persona to make it through life here in America. It's very poignant and invigorating to think about, these topics. So that is what We Wear the Mask is all about. Artists they're calling for you. They're calling for you. And believe it or not, everyone is an artist, as we talked about yesterday. If you could draw a stick figure, that is art. Don't doubt yourself now. Everyone has artistic abilities. And, it doesn't have to be drawing, music, the art of speaking well, the art of communication. That's what I'll say. The art of communication. That is also an art. So we're communicating, our feelings, expressing them and expressing them, from time to time. But yeah, okay. It's time to get to the good stuff. I'm done with my ramble and bamble for today. So if I didn't say before, I am TC Lewis, and, hold on to your seats and get ready for another edition today on Our Voices Today, another edition of Life and the Law, conversations about your rights with our friends from the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. Remember, if you are needing legal help with any of those fundamental life issues, housing, employment, benefits, do you feel safe at home? If you don't, you can call Legal Aid, get in touch with them. Education. We've talked about education. We talked about immigration issues. It's tax season. If you have some questions, legal questions about taxes, I believe the Legal Aid Society can help you. You just want to pick up the phone and call them at 216-687-1900, 216-687-1900. And the website, if you're so inclined, is at lasclev.org, lasclev.org, and you can fill out the intake form on there, and the good folks at Legal Aid Society of Cleveland will give you a call and, check you out, see what you need. So today we are privileged to have, of course, two attorneys on with us from Legal Aid. We're going to be talking about Social Security benefits. Those of us, we are getting up there, in our big age, as people love to say. Well, some people, I don't know, have y'all heard that? People say big age instead of old. But anyway, when you're getting into your wizened and wizened years, Social Security becomes top of mind, because we all think about that big pot of money that we get for making it through, to age 65, sometimes 67, I think. And then some people retire at 70 in their 70s. Anyhow, so what is all this about? And, what are some of the legalities of it? What if we have issues? What are some of the issues and challenges we can face, and how do we overcome them? Well, today, to talk about all those things, and I'm sure a few, many more, does that make sense? A few, many more is Deb Dahlman, senior attorney at Legal Aid Society, along with Brandon Smith, public affairs specialist with the Social Security Administration. Welcome, the two of you, to Our Voices Today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you, TC. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here with us. And as we, peel back the layers of this, what seems to be, maybe can be a tricky issue, maybe even overwhelming for some people. And some people are just, in the dark about Social Security, the benefits, and maybe the legal implications we can run into. So, Deb, let's start with you. If I had an issue with Social Security and I picked up the phone and called Legal Aid, what are some of the things that you may be able to help me out with?
Okay. Well, thanks, TC. I mean, you mentioned turning 65, and for some of us a little later, Social Security, if you've paid into the Social Security system, you may be eligible for retirement benefits. We actually don't see that many cases involving Social Security benefits. So what we focus on is Social Security disability cases. And we see a lot of cases involving termination of benefits. We unfortunately don't help apply for Social Security disability because there are so many private firms in the area that do represent clients in those cases. So most of our cases are especially child disability termination cases. We do see a few adult disability termination cases. So that's pretty much the focus of our practice area. Brandon, I think, could probably give you lots of information on the application process, and he's probably much more knowledgeable in the process for applying for retirement and stuff. We do see a lot of termination of disability cases. That's one area that we practice in.
And I know from, anecdotally, I know that, getting Social Security disability benefits can be a trial in itself. And so, Brandon, tell us about Social Security, in the general sense. Who is eligible? How do we get into accessing those benefits? And a little more about the disability side.
Sure. Social Security, federal government agency that's been around for over 80 plus years, paying benefits to 65 to 70 million Americans and people on a monthly basis, from people receiving retirement, survivor, spousal, as Deborah mentioned, disability benefits. We also administer the supplemental security income, impacting people at all stages of life, from birth, when you have your baby and you have the paperwork filled out to get their initial Social Security card, through working and entering the workforce, survivor, disability benefits. But specifically to disability benefits, we administer two different programs: Social Security Disability Insurance, sometimes known as SSDI. It's a work-based program for people that worked and paid into Social Security and are now unable to work because of a medically determinable physical, mental, or psychological condition. Our basic definition of being disabled means you have a condition that's going to keep you from working at a substantial gainful level for a period of at least a year, or eventually end your life. When we say substantial gainful level, in 2022, we're talking about the ability to earn about $1,350 per month gross. Or if you're blind, that goes up to about $2,260. People can apply for that benefit on our website, socialsecurity.gov. You can also call our toll-free number, which we'll talk about a number of times throughout the course of the show, 1-800-772-1213. People can also contact their local office to schedule an appointment. On average, it takes about 3 to 5 months to have a medical decision to be made. And when you're applying for disability benefits, you are giving us your information. What is your condition? What doctors have you seen? Hospitals, medicines, physical tests, painting a picture of who you are and what your condition is to Social Security. We also administer the Supplemental Security Income, sometimes better known as SSI. It's a needs-based program for people that are blind, disabled, or over the age of 65 with limited income and limited resources.
Thank you for going through that with us. Now I have a question. So the amount that people who apply for Social Security disability insurance, the amount that the threshold for them to be able to earn is $1,350.
Here's where I always sort of pull back a bit, and I tell the public, always do whatever's in your best interest. When we consider someone disabled, it's an inability to earn at least $1,350 per month gross. But there are some circumstances in which they can have made more money and we can discount it. There are situations called impairment, and I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but there are impairment-related work expenses. So you may have a person that's making $2,000 a month at their job, but they have to pay for items out of their own pocket that they're not reimbursed for, that allows them to keep the job or maintain the job or do the job. So modifications to computer equipment or transportation, or maybe a guide dog, or some other modifications to phone equipment. And let's say they're making that $2,000, but they're paying, say, $800 or $900 out of their pocket to pay for these modifications. Well, then we can count that lower amount as their wages. But I don't want people to say or think that Social Security said I can only make this amount. No, obviously do whatever's in your best interest. But if you're making more than $1,350, unless there are some extraneous circumstances, you may not be considered disabled according to Social Security's rules.
Yeah, I asked because I was wondering why the amount was higher for individuals who are blind, but now it makes sense because you may need more tools and accommodations that it would be more expensive, as someone who cannot see and still needs to move around the world. Well, that takes us to our first break here on this latest edition of Life and the Law, conversations about your rights with our friends from the Legal Aid Society. We have with us Deb Dahlman, senior attorney at Legal Aid, and Brandon. Ooh, I'm losing the last name. Sorry, Brandon. But he is with us from the Social Security Administration. I'll get all the full names when we come back from this break. It takes me a little while to get warmed up here, but we are. This is Our Voices Today on WOVU 95.9 FM. I'm TC Lewis, and we'll be right back. If you have any questions for our guests about Social Security benefits, and maybe when do you need to call a lawyer about Social Security, call us 216-271-0959, 216-271-0959. If you're shy, you can send a text to the talkback line 216-200-7848, 200-7848. We'll be right back. This is Our Voices Today on WOVU 95.9 FM.
What could we have had? Yeah, it's time to lose those shackles and break those chains. Now who is gonna stop you from being a man? Stand for something. Why don't you open your eyes? Stand up for what you know is right. Stand up, my people.
The Healthy Neighborhoods Committee of the Healthy Cleveland Initiative understands that racism is a problem that must be overcome. Achieving racial equality requires that we not only call out racism, but we also talk about it. For some people, this is difficult. We also know that art helps us express ourselves beyond words. This is how We Wear the Mask was born. We Wear the Mask is a campaign designed to promote conversations about race in our community. Over the next year, we will be hosting conversations and collecting visual, written, and performance reflections for an exhibit about race. We invite you to participate with us as we take off the mask and take steps towards healing and reconciliation. This message has been brought to you by WOVU 95.9 FM, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Somebody say, hey, we want some money. Hey, we want some money. And you can get yours. Enterprise Community Partners presents free tax filing from IRS certified professionals. There's locations all around Cuyahoga County, and you can receive up to $6,600 from the Earned Income Tax Credit if eligible. They'll even be able to help you open a checking account to safely deposit your tax refund into if you don't already have a checking account. There's no fees, filing is free, there's no catch at all. Schedule your tax appointment at refundohio.com. This message is brought to you by Third Federal, Huntington Bank, Dollar Bank, U.S. Bank, Ohio Savings Bank, Cuyahoga County Family Services, Bank of America, Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, IRS, Citizens Bank, Fifth Third Bank, PNC, Key Bank, and WOVU, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
Hey Cleveland, you can now listen to one of the hottest radio stations on your phone. Yes, that's right. WOVU 95.9 FM has a new mobile app. And did I mention that it's free? You can download our app in Google Play or in the Apple Store. Just type in WOVU 95.9 FM. Now you don't have to stay in that car trying to catch every beat. You can listen to us while you're getting ready for work, while you're making dinner, or while you're winding down after a long day of work. What are you waiting for? Go ahead and download our app right now. And make sure you keep it locked on WOVU 95.9 FM.
You work so hard. It's time to make the short story longer. Yeah. Stand for something. Stand up, my people. Stand for something in your life. Stand for something. Stand up, my people.
Welcome back. This is Our Voices Today on WOVU 95.9 FM. I am TC Lewis, and we are in the midst of another riveting edition of Life and the Law, conversations about your rights with our friends from the Legal Aid Society. Today's topic focuses on Social Security benefits, who's eligible, how to get them, how to apply, who to talk to, where to go, who qualifies, right? All those things and more we are discussing with our distinguished guest, Deb Dahlman, Senior Attorney at Legal Aid, and Brandon Smith, Public Affairs Specialist with the Social Security Administration. And Brandon was telling us before the break, that it takes, Brandon, you said 3 to 6 months or 5 to 6 months for a Social Security disability decision to be rendered. So, what happens after, you begin receiving benefits? What are your responsibilities as a recipient?
Sure. So let's say you've gone, you applied for benefits, they've been approved, you start receiving the benefits directly deposited or on a direct express card. You will, as a beneficiary, have reporting responsibilities, circumstances in which you need to recontact Social Security. I mean, some of it is really simple. If you move, if you change banks, of course, if you go from one bank to another, we have no idea. So you'd want to make sure that there's a continuation of your benefit. But really important when people are receiving one of our disability benefits is if they decide to go back to work. If you do return to the workforce, it's imperative that you contact Social Security and make sure you submit proof of your wages. You can do that a number of different ways. You can do that online at our website, socialsecurity.gov, by creating what's called a My Social Security account. That's socialsecurity.gov/my account. There's a wage reporting option there. So a person that's receiving one of our disability benefits, they have the option of reporting their wages electronically. You can call the toll-free national number, 1-800-772-1213. You can talk to someone at your local field office and maybe submit that information via fax. But you really want to do it as soon as possible, or no later than about a week and a half after the end of the month, because these changes can have an impact on your benefit. It's quite possible, depending on your circumstances, where you might be owed more money. Maybe there's, we thought you were making more money than you really were, so you're due more money. Or could be a situation where you're overpaid, where we paid you more money than you were potentially due, and you'd have to pay that money back.
And, the Social Security Administration is a very large agency, and navigating your way through it, I'm sure, can be daunting at times, especially with a lot of things being online. Now, there is still a phone number you can call, but for those who need guidance, maybe they need to be walked or handheld through the process, who is out there that we can trust that to help us, and not take advantage of us?
Sure. Of course, we would want people to at least attempt, if possible, to try to get some of these services online. We understand that there's a digital divide and not everyone can go on our website to take care of their business. If they can't, reach us by telephone or do a phone appointment, there are circumstances in which they can have an in-person appointment. They'd have to call their local office to see if they qualify for that in-person appointment. They would have to have a mask on regardless of vaccination status. Social distancing rules are in place, so it's quite possible if you do have an in-person appointment that you might have to wait outside depending on how busy the office is on that particular day. We are asking that people come in by themselves if possible, and if they do have sort of an issue where they can't navigate it by themselves, that they have just one person assisting them when they're in their in-person appointment. But there are some community agencies that have been trained by the Social Security Administration to do referrals or actually take Social Security disability or SSI application. Just a handful real quick. The Greater Cleveland Food Bank, Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities, an organization called Asia Inc., and Signature Health have all been trained to at the very least take referrals. So if a person say, hey, look, I want to apply for disability benefits, If they can't at least take the application, they have a referral sheet where they can get all your pertinent information and then submit it to the local office.
Mm-hmm. Are there any scams that we should be on the lookout for? Or how do we know, someone calling us? We get those robocalls about Social Security benefits, and, should we be avoiding those calls and giving other people our information?
That is a great question. And this has been an issue for the last couple of years. I can't say this any more forcefully. Social Security will not cold call and threaten you. There's no such thing as suspending or canceling your Social Security number. We will never want, cryptocurrency. We don't want wire transfers. Please don't send us cash. The numbers off the back of a gift card or prepaid debit card, that is not us, period, full stop. If Social Security needs you, we would send you a letter in the mail. Please hang up if you get one of these calls. If you know how to, because they're calling your cell, try to block the number or see if your cell phone or your cell provider offers any sort of blocking apps. If you do, unfortunately, give them any information, you can report the scam to our Office of Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov. We encourage people to contact the local police department to file a police report, but try to not give the information up first. And I know you're sitting there, your phone rings, and someone is sort of talking fast and saying that you owe some money to Social Security, and you get nervous, but just pull back. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people aren't even on Social Security, and we have no idea what your phone number would be in that instance anyway. So just realize Social Security will not threaten you and will not be the people calling you asking for all this information.
Good. And so for those, so we talked a lot about Social Security, disability insurance, applying for that, going through the process. What do you need to do? And so the reporting requirements, are they the same for SSI and what was the other one?
Like retirement. Yeah, for the most part, sure.
Yeah,
yes.
The regular Social Security. Yeah, just because you retired. Go ahead.
Yeah, across the board, if you're receiving a monthly ongoing benefit from Social Security, move, change banks. Sometimes if your marital status changes, if you leave the country, if a person is unfortunately incarcerated, those are circumstances in which they need to reach out to us. Now, with Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, because it's a needs-based program, you have to be aware that it changes in not only your income, but the income of your spouse, if you guys are living together, can also have an impact. So if you're on Social Security retirement and your spouse, hits the pick 3 numbers or gets a great raise at their job, that's not going to impact you. But with SSI, since it is a needs-based program, changes to not only your income and resources, but the changes to the income and resources of your spouse would need to be reported, because it is a possibility that would have an impact on how much your check's going to be.
What about, expenses? Do your expenses, is that taken into account when determining the amount, either up or down, that a person receives for Social Security?
Usually no. So it's usually just the gross earned wages. So, and we understand it could be a situation where I'm making X amount of dollars, but I may owe another X amount of dollars, but that usually doesn't come into consideration when it comes to your benefit eligibility. With Social Security disability, we don't care about your resources. So money derived from stocks, bonds, CDs, IRAs, stuff like that, those are non-issues for Social Security disability. It's usually just going to be wages, workers' compensation, or maybe public disability benefits. But once again, since SSI is a needs-based program, it's going to care about all of that. Plus, if you have any other vehicles other than your primary car, if you have any other pieces of property other than your home in which you live in. But once again, you might owe money on your house, but the value of other pieces of property is still going to be considered a resource for SSI eligibility.
All right. Good stuff. Great information. As usual, we have to keep our pens, pencils, and notepads, or electronic, or whatever the real way you say it, the notepad. So anyway, because you got to be writing this stuff down, all the information that we share. And today we're talking about Social Security. with Brandon Smith, a public affairs specialist with Social Security Administration, along with Deb Dahlman, a senior attorney at Legal Aid Society of Cleveland, both here with us to talk about your rights regarding Social Security. So we'll get more into that specifically when we come back from this break. You are tuned in to Our Voices Today on WOVU 95.9 FM. Have any questions, any comments, or concerns? Call us during the break and we'll get you on live. 216-271-0959. 216-271-0959. We'll be right back.
To never stop fighting, don't ever quit. Just cause the rich get richer and the poor don't get. Excuse me, but I get so mad. Where could we have been?
Extra, extra, read all about it. There's a new player in the game of local news, and that player is you. Say hello to the Ohio Local News Initiative.
A new nonprofit newsroom is coming to Cleveland. The Ohio Local News Initiative is here at the Unbar with Cleveland Documenters and WOVU. We want to hear from Cleveland residents about what they want from local news media.
Local news should look like the people in the community, man. I mean, people that have been in the community doing great things that people overlook every day.
We've never included the community in reporting before. When you have reporters who live in the community, it's very different than a stranger coming in and asking a question. So if I trust you already because you're my neighbor and now you're doing the reporting, we're already, from Jump Street, we're doing so much better in terms of getting the story that's real.
Local news is very traditional. I think something, different will be something that thinks outside of the box, something that redefines journalism.
It doesn't have to be what we've always grown to know and get comfortable with, and it's about stepping outside of the box to ensure that the news that's being heard is not biased. The news that's being heard, that's being reported, actually trickles down to the residents in the same way that it was disseminated from the top.
I would like the journalists to have a positive effect on the community by reporting good news. Not only the bad news, but good news.
The narrative about what we do in our communities is always the worst things. Nobody talks about the positive things. We need an editor that looks like us. We need an editor that's concerned like us. We need an editor that can hire a staff like us.
Members of this project is willing to come into the community and hear what people want. I think that is huge. You don't see that happening in traditional journalism.
It's very important to the surrounding communities. It'll be an asset for us all.
Including the community, getting the real story, and redefining journalism to have a positive impact on that community is an asset for us all. What do you want from local news? What stories do you want to be told? What kind of journalism would help your community thrive? We want to hear from you. Call or text 216-208-1048. That's 216-208-1048. Or visit the website at localnewsforohio.org. That's localnewsforohio.org. This message is brought to you by the Neighborhood and Community Media Association of Greater Cleveland, the Cleveland Documenters, and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
It's time to make the short story longer, yeah.
Welcome back. You are tuned in to Our Voices Today on WOVU 95.9 FM. We are making the short story longer around Social Security benefits and the legal implications there. With us from the Legal Aid Society, Deb Dahlman, senior attorney there, and Brandon Smith, public affairs specialist with the Social Security Administration, straight from the federal government itself. Brandon joins us. So, we talked a lot about Social Security, of course, but anyway, we talked about the money side, but what happens, you get your amount determined by your income, your ability to earn income. What happens if you get paid more than you're supposed to, Deb?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that, TC, because this area is actually, we see a lot of cases involving this. So Social Security, for some reason, maybe you didn't understand your reporting requirements. You thought you were doing everything right. And all of a sudden you get this notice from Social Security that basically says, we paid you too much and you owe us money. And obviously that could be very alarming for people who are, sometimes just getting by on Social Security, or, as Brandon mentioned, the supplemental security income. So we encourage clients to not ignore that notice. Don't panic, because there are things that you can do. So Social Security sends you this notice of overpayment and explains how much you owe them. And I think the letter says basically they anticipate you paying it in 30 days, I think. And of course, that causes alarm. And the letter's supposed to explain to you what caused it. Social Security found out you had some higher income that you didn't report, or, as Brandon mentioned, maybe you got married and your wife's wages might affect your Social Security amount, and you didn't think to report that. So you get this notice, and there's several things you can do. You can appeal, and it's a request for reconsideration, fancy word for appealing, and you're telling Social Security, no, I don't agree with this. I wasn't overpaid. You're wrong. For the most part, when you get the letter and it's explaining, you probably know, I didn't report the income because I didn't know. So your appeal may not be successful, but you do have a deadline for that, and that's 60 days. As I said, it's important just not to ignore that initial notice. Another thing that you can do is you can request a waiver, and a waiver is basically asking Social Security to not make you repay that. Okay, I agree, I was overpaid, but it wasn't my fault. I was without fault. And if I have to repay, I really don't have enough money to meet my ordinary and necessary expenses. So there's no deadline for the waiver. But again, I encourage people to submit something as soon as possible. And you can actually do both at the same time, or you can contact Social Security. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Brandon, but a lot of times Social Security will propose a certain amount that they're going to withhold from your ongoing benefits. And if you call them, you might be able to negotiate is probably not the right word, but perhaps you can enter into a lower monthly repayment amount. And again, that's probably going to be based on your expenses. But again, the important thing is to not ignore the notice, because even if you're not receiving Social Security benefits right now, it could affect you in the future. Maybe you were receiving benefits, you have improved, you're no longer getting disability, and then fast forward to 65 and you're eligible for retirement. That overpayment or debt is basically still going to be on your record. But we see a lot of clients requesting assistance for overpayments, and we represent those clients in appeals and waivers. So as Brandon was saying, it's really important to report changes in income and life situations so that this doesn't happen. I tell clients, I've seen overpayments that occurred years ago. And I tell clients, if you don't report Social Security, I don't know how they do it, Brandon, but they will find out, right?
I mean, eventually.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that I did want to make sure that your listeners were aware of, TC, because as Brandon said, it's important.
And I'm sure reporting errors leads you down the slippery slope to termination. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what are some of the other reasons why a Social Security case would be terminated?
Well, I mean, because there is a difference in the two programs that are administered by Social Security. With the SSI program, and that's for low-income individuals who haven't paid into Social Security, there is a resource limit. Some things are exempt, the house you live in, a vehicle used for transportation, but what happens if you all of a sudden have an inheritance of a few $1,000s or something, you deposit that in your bank account. Well, under the SSI program, you cannot have more than $2,000 in resources. So as soon as you go over that limit, you could actually be terminated from the SSI program because again, it's needs-based.
Okay. All right. And let's talk about kids who get Social Security benefits. I remember growing up and having classmates who would talk about their SSI checks that they would get, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, but how do you get that? So how do children get Social Security benefits? What are those scenarios? Either either one.
I guess Deb and I flipped a coin and I lost. So for children, it could be a couple of different reasons. The child could be simply receiving benefits because their parents are receiving benefits. So if a parent is receiving Social Security retirement, Social Security disability, or has unfortunately transitioned and passed away, children can potentially be eligible if they're under the age of 18, 19, but still a full-time student in high school, not college, or if the children are of any age, but they were disabled before turning 22. Now that would be a Social Security survivor benefit or a Social Security auxiliary benefit from the record of another beneficiary. Sounds like your classmates might have been receiving SSI, supplemental security income, maybe a disabled child benefit. Same rules. If a child has a medically determinable condition that shows or causes limitations in their functioning, it's possible if the parents are under the income and resource limits, the child might qualify for a monthly ongoing supplemental security income check. But, to Deborah's point, since it's a needs-based program, if it's children are living with one parent and that parent gets, married, or the parents both are working, depending on the income of the parents, the child may or may not be eligible for a month here, a month there. I've seen situations where, depending on how the paycheck goes, sometimes people have that 3-payment month depending on how the calendar falls. Well, that extra paycheck in a month might have an impact on an SSI check versus if you just get paid once or twice a month, depending on how much you're making overall.
Yeah, and it's tax season. So how do we deal with Social Security benefits and reporting that on our taxes?
Well, people that are receiving Social Security benefits, retirement, survivor, spousal disability, usually in January, they will get a 1099 for tax purposes that they can use to report. Now, supplemental security income, since it's a needs-based program, that isn't taxable. We aren't the IRS, and I never speak bad about the IRS in public or even privately because they could somehow probably hear the voices in my head. But people do have the option of having taxes withheld or a portion of their benefit withheld for tax purposes. There's an IRS form that they complete. It's called the W4V. W is in William, 4 is in 4, V is in Victor. This form allows you to have 7, 10, 12, or 22% withheld for federal tax purposes if you want to. But just want to caution individuals, I wouldn't contact Social Security for tax advice. That isn't what we do. But if you want to have money withheld from your check for tax purposes, then yes, please contact us.
Okay, yeah.
And
TC,
ahead, I'm really glad you mentioned the tax time because although as Brandon mentioned, it's not, for the most part, not taxable, but we do around tax time see a lot of cases involving identity theft that can affect your Social Security, your SSI. For instance, somebody says, "Oh, I'll file your income tax form for you," and maybe in doing that, that person declares on the form that you worked. So that's income that Social Security may not have known about. And then fast forward a few months, and you get this notice from Social Security that says, "Oh, you worked." And it all relates back to identity theft. So we have seen a lot of cases like that. So, but income tax time is a dangerous time for scams and fraud. So, and eventually it could affect your SSI amount.
Well, that was my next question about fraud. Are there, I guess, Brandon, you would know this perhaps more than Deb, but do we know the percentage of people who try to get over on Social Security by, I don't know, hiding assets or just falsifying information? And what are the consequences for things like that?
Don't know the percentages because they're probably still hiding the information from us, but sure, with Social Security, retirement survivor, spousal disability, you're other than wages, net profits from self-employment, workers' comp, most other income doesn't really, matter. So if you're getting private disability benefits, or you're getting payments from an annuity or something like that, an inheritance that Deborah had mentioned earlier, for Social Security purposes, that usually doesn't matter. So there's really no reason you don't need to disclose it to us because it isn't going to have an impact on your benefit. But with SSI, as we said a couple times, since it is a needs-based program, and I get it. You're sitting there, you're getting your check, you're thinking, look, as you mentioned, the government is really big and it's cumbersome, and how are they going to find out? The issue is, depending on how the income was paid, you probably are going to get a 1099, and at some point, our records are going to interface with information from IRS. But the problem with that is, by the time we find out, maybe months or years have gone by, and now what might have been, maybe you just had one check stopped, or maybe the check was just going to be lower. Now you're running the risk of maybe being overpaid, tens of thousands. I've seen six-figure overpayments depending on what happens. So you got to sort of do that mental roll of the dice. Is this worth it? Because if I do get caught weeks, months, years, decades down the line, it's going to be so much more money that's owed. And like Deborah said, at some point, maybe they come after your tax returns or something like that, and their wage garnishment, and it just, is it worth it to you to have all that sort of stress on your shoulders? So report it as soon as you can, and then if it affects your check, we can deal with it in real time.
Deb, what about underpayments? When people look at their statements or get their amounts, and they're like, "Hey, I was supposed to get this. Doesn't seem right. I feel like I should be getting more." How does legal aid help with that?
Well, I very rarely see underpayments, but particularly with the SSI program, that is based on your income. So maybe you have a job, a little job, maybe you're making $100 a month or something. And I think Social Security estimates that will continue for a certain period of time unless you report a change. So it is feasible, Brandon, obviously you can correct me, that based on that estimate, if you stopped working and were no longer earning that 100, that Social Security should have recalculated your benefit amount. That could result in an underpayment of benefits, but I have not seen payment situations unless it's based on income that's changed.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and take our last break real fast. This is the latest edition of Life and the Law, conversations about your rights with our friends from the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland on our Voices Today, which you are tuned into right here on WOVU 95.9 FM. If you haven't, make sure you go download the app during this break so that when you get up and go out the house or out the office, you take us right with you. So we'll be right back, real quick. WOVU 95.9 FM.
To never stop fighting, don't ever quit. Just 'cause the rich get richer and the poor don't get.
Joyce from Shaker Heights, thanks for calling in to the WOVU Talkback line. Go ahead and say what you gotta say.
Hello, I love listening to WOVU as much as I can, the Eric Nolan Grant show. Love it, love his music selection, love the positive talk that he gives us. I just wish that we could have him on every day. Also, like my granddaughter, loves listening to the Lily Jade show on Saturday morning. Another positive offering. Take care and God bless. Bye-bye.
Leave a voicemail or send a text to the WOVU Talkback line, 216-200-7848, 216-200-7848. Call us anytime, anywhere, and share your voice. This is WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
It's time to make the short story longer.
All right, we're back wrapping up this hour with our friends from Legal Aid Society and a new friend from Social Security Administration. Brandon Smith is a public affairs specialist down at the Grand Old SSA. And also Deb Dahlman has been here with us, a senior attorney at Legal Aid Society of Cleveland. So let's, take it back to the top and remind our listeners just of the basics, about Social Security, where you can go, the numbers you can call, and, who qualifies. I guess, Brandon, I'll throw that to you.
Sure. Thank you so much. So you got a couple options on how you can contact us. Website is going to be socialsecurity.gov, also known as ssa.gov. Toll-free national number is 1-800-772-1213. That number is staffed between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. We usually say that it's probably easier to contact it Wednesday through Friday and later on throughout the day. Every office's direct phone number can be accessed via our website. We have a field office locator. You can access it by going to socialsecurity.gov/agency/contact. That's socialsecurity.gov/agency/contact. You put in your zip code and it'll give you the office that services your geographic area. There are certain circumstances in which a person might be able to have an in-person appointment, but that's going to be with an appointment only. You have to wear a mask regardless of vaccination status. Depending on the circumstances, you may have to wait outside if there are other people that already have an appointment, so sort of be prepared based on the weather. And we would strongly prefer that you come by yourself, or if not, at least with one other person, because just of the physical dimensions of the offices can't really accommodate people like we used to. And as far as eligibility, just real quick, for Social Security retirement benefits, you got to be at least 62 years old and have worked and paid in the system for at least 10 years. From there, your spouse, ex-spouse, ex-spouses, child, children might all potentially be eligible for benefits. For Social Security disability benefits and SSI, from an adult perspective, we're talking about you have to be unable to work because of a physical, mental, or psychological condition for at least 12 months or eventually going to end your life.
Thank you. And Deb, how can we get in touch with Legal Aid? And when do we know to get in touch with Legal Aid about Social Security?
Well, I would say at any time when you receive a letter from Social Security that you don't understand, you can give us a call. We do focus on the issues that I for overpayments, child disability terminations, and adult disability terminations. But the important thing is just do not ignore the notice. Try to call Social Security and ask questions, but give us a call, especially during our public health emergency. The pandemic has presented a lot of challenges. So err on the side of caution. And I just think it's important that people, sometimes they struggle with understanding the notices. And it's just always important to try to reach out and ask somebody to help.
Yes, absolutely. How can, well, if you, either of you have any thoughts on this, how can, families or people close to our seniors be helpful in these processes?
Well, I think that a lot of the agencies that do serve seniors are really mindful that the process of applying and understanding benefits can be quite challenging. So I think there's probably some assistance in place. Brandon, are you aware of the agencies in Cleveland that assist seniors with applications or questions?
Well, as far as assisting people, there are, like I said, there's the Greater Cleveland Food Bank and Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities, Asia Inc., and Signature Health, where they have been trained to at least take referrals or applications. I know that, during the break, you had mentioned, representative payees, and I'll just say this before I sort of pass it back off to you, but there are circumstances in which a person can't, manage their affairs, but a person can appoint individuals to be their representative payee in the event that later on in life they are unable to manage their finances, and they can do that via the My Social Security portal. But the last thing I want to say is, if you're trying to contact us or help out a senior member of your family, just understand, at least for Social Security purposes, we don't recognize power of attorney to change things on their record. But I'm sure you may have had something else to add to that point.
Yeah, sorry, TC, but one of the things that I did want to make sure your listeners were aware of, that we at Legal Aid also do assist when clients might have issues with their Social Security representative payee. And what that is Social Security at some point in time determines that you just might not be able to manage your benefits. Maybe you have a pretty serious mental health challenge and you can't make the decisions. Maybe you decide that buying a TV is more important to pay rent. And then, so you're at risk for homelessness. So Social Security has a representative payee program where somebody's appointed for you. It's usually a family member to manage your benefits, and they're supposed to pay your bills and report changes to Social Security. So a lot of times we do get calls from Social Security beneficiaries who are having difficulties with the rep payee. Maybe rep payee isn't paying expenses like they should. But that's also goes to Brandon's point that a lot of times seniors do have a Social Security representative payee to help them navigate some of the Social Security processes.
Yes. Well, that brings us to the end of the program. Thank you so much, Deb Dahlman, Senior Attorney at Legal Aid, for joining us, along with Brandon Smith, Public Affairs Specialist with the Social Security Administration. Remember, listeners, if you need help with, or you have questions about Social Security, you can call the national 1-800 line, available 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays, 1-800-772-1213. That's 800-772-1213. You can also go to the website, Social Security Administration. It's ssa.gov. That's www.ssa.gov. And to get in touch with Legal Aid, for questions about Social Security, if you have an issue with a notice, something ended and you're like, oh, what do I do? Call Legal Aid at 216-687-1900, 216-687-1900. And very important, along, Social Security, definitely important. But look, if you are getting evicted, if you're about to lose your home, call Legal Aid. They help you. The Right to Counsel program, still available. For residents of Cleveland, you have a kid in your home, all the other different types of qualifications, but it's real easy. Call them 216-667-1900, or you can call 211 United Ways 211, and they will connect you with the Legal Aid Right to Counsel program, along with other things like so that's housing. Like if you feel unsafe, if you need help with finances, call Legal Aid. Employment, unemployment benefits, whatever you can think of. If you have a question, call it. I don't know if Deb is answering the phone, but some very kind and compassionate people are there to help take you in and see what they can do for you. Again, thank you to our guests. We are going to sail right out of here. Thanks to Aaron Horan. Shout out to the puppy. Thanks for helping us with these wonderful life and the law conversations. I know she's listening. And thank you to you listeners out there, all of you, for tuning in to Our Voices Today and WOVU 95.9 FM. Have a wonderful time.
Taught or told to never stop fighting, don't ever quit, just cause the rich get richer and the poor don't get